Welcome to another episode of the Seventh Voice Podcast. I'm your host, Aziz Adesanya. I promise you I'm going to be bringing a lot of amazing guests to this podcast, and I have another amazing guest today. Is someone that I've really, been having conversation with him for a long time. He's one of the top mortgage experts that I know. He's a content creator. He's someone that knows a lot about financing, and he's an investor as well, which you all know I always like to talk to investors. I have here with me today Royon Simon. Am I pronouncing your name properly?
You got it right. Good job. Good job. My name is Royon Simon. I'm a mortgage broker as well as a real estate investor. Do a lot of content creation, and overall, I'm just a financial literacy enthusiast. I've been talking about money for as long as I can remember, and it's led me here, which I am overjoyed to be a part of.
I like to hear when you say you're talking about money because, there's a little bit of negative connotation to money because when people hear you talk about money, they think you're proud. And I was having one of my guests that we have on the podcast about, I think 2 episodes ago, was saying the relationship people have with money, when you want to hear you talk about money, they think, oh, this guy have ego. But the wealthy people, they have a different kind of relationship. They talk about money because they know that this is a vehicle that's kind of do a lot of things you want to do in the world. You want to be a good person. It's good to be good, but with money, you could even be better, right? So,
Right.
But I want to kind of come back to the way your intro was very short, by the way. I want it longer, but I think
longer. I can go longer. I'm a very long-winded individual. Even like, for example, you talking about like the stigma around money.
Yes.
I grew up with, parents who were very, very like they shied away from talking about money a lot. Like even to this day, like I never even got to hear how much my mom even made, right? Like it was very taboo. And as I've grown up and become more successful and, wedged myself into different financial spaces, I've learned that people that are higher up that earn a lot more money are a lot more open with their finances because that's really the true key to learning how to even get to that point and beyond. So it's been something that I've had to adapt to and shift myself from a mindset perspective. Even myself, like making a YouTube channel for finances before I even was a mortgage agent. Which, you learn some new things as well. It was predicated on just sharing the things that I've learned and trying to teach other people how to adopt it themselves. And that, I think the reason why I was successful of a YouTube channel at the time was because nobody was doing that because, like, again, we grew up not wanting to talk about money. So I learned the power. I learned the power of talking about it, and I'm very passionate about continuing to do so.
So from what I understand from you, because I told you at the beginning of the podcast today that I intentionally didn't ask you a lot of questions to know more about you. I know you from afar, someone that I see that you know a lot about mortgage, you know a lot about financial literacy, and you share it. But I'm 100% sure, like me, you didn't start like you want to be in real estate. I used to work in IT. I say this all the time on my podcast. I was 4 or 5 years ago, if you know me, you will see me in front of a computer. I was almost 6 years ago writing code, right? Computer code. And I've worked in few things that look like maybe I might own a business, but not real estate. How did you get into the world of mortgage, into the financing? Do you just wake up? You just told me now your parents are not the financial expert, as we can say. How did you get into the world of finance and real estate?
Great question. And honestly, it's been like, even like looking back as you're asking that question, it's been multiple stops that kind of have led me here. But like when you really tally it all up, I'm not surprised. So what led me to becoming a mortgage agent, phase 1, I actually ended up buying my first property before even being a mortgage agent, which typically isn't the case. Most times people become a realtor or a mortgage agent and then they buy their property because they've been surrounded by it. But for me, I bought my first property when I was 26. And I had met the realtor in the club. Long story short,
in the club? What are you in the club?
So we were in the club and we were having a good time, and my friends were popping bottles, his friends were popping bottles, and we were in booths that were neighboring each other. And, just going back and forth and noticing that person spending a lot of money, this person spending a lot of money. He came over to me eventually throughout the night, and he's like, what do you guys do for a living? And I'm like, listen, I work at the bank. Like I was working at the bank at the time. And he's like, you should buy a property. And I'm like, sure, why not? Like I know home ownership is a goal of mine in the future. And at this time, I'm also in the club, a little inebriated. And I'm like, yo, I'll buy a house tomorrow if you really like, if the opportunity presents itself. And he's like, well, I'm a realtor. and I've got some pre-con projects that you should look into. Let's talk tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Just thinking that like it's gonna
be
water under the bridge.
Exactly.
The next morning, because we did exchange numbers, he messages me at like the crack of dawn. I'm still hungover. He's like, here are all the building layouts. These are the price points. This is the areas. Which one do you want? You were talking a lot of big talk last night. Which one do you want? And I'm like, whoa, serious? Yeah, he's not joking. But when I looked at it, like actually like, took a glimpse at it and really took it in, the prices made sense. They were townhouses in Brantford. I was living in Brampton at the time.
Okay.
And there were townhouses in Brantford that were priced below $400,000 and only required a $25,000 down payment, which I had about 20 grand on me at the time. So I'm like, okay, by the time that the last deposit is required, I can get the extra 5 grand. So I signed on to it. Ultimately, me and my dad looked at it. We went to the signing center. We looked at some of the model homes and we were like, yo, this makes sense.
Good. Yeah.
And also me, 26 at the time, where else am I going to buy a property at this price with this low of a down payment?
And if you don't use that money to do that, you're going to go back to that club.
I'm going to blow it. I'm going to go to the club again next weekend, buy more bottles, and I'm going to be down to $17,000. So we signed on to it and it was closing the following year. And I signed on thinking like everything was great. Me and my dad were celebrating, it felt like a really high moment.
Yes, yeah, a good thing.
Fast forward to a year later, the builder says, my property's coming up on closing. Where's my mortgage? And I said,
I'm sure you'll be like, what is mortgage?
I said, don't I just get the mortgage with the house? What do you mean, where's my mortgage? Give me my mortgage. They said, no, you figure it out. And so we can close. And if you don't, you're losing your deposit and you're going to get sued. Mind you, this is the first I'm hearing of this. Because and granted, I don't blame the realtor at all. He did his job. I should have done my due diligence to understand everything that goes into it. So now realizing that I got about 2 months to go to get my mortgage in order so I can close on this property and not lose my deposit, I had to go through, I think I went through about 6 different brokers to get my mortgage because I had just started at the bank. I never had 2 years history. I was part-time.
Not full-time.
I wasn't full-time, I was part-time. And as you can imagine, like now we're learning all the things that I tell people about today I was experiencing, but nobody had given me the proper heads up.
Okay.
So I think on like the 7th broker, he figured out how to get it to go. My dad co-signed for me. I got my property, I closed. But as I rejoiced, I realized how close of a call it was.
That you and that I should have that property.
Exactly. And lost my money and been sued and I don't like to lose $5. Never mind 20,000.
I don't like to lose
25,000. So when I realized that when I closed, I'm like, yo, this was a really close call. It shouldn't be this difficult to learn what's necessary to close on a property in any scenario. So I felt like taking it upon myself to be the mortgage agent that I wish I had in my corner long before I even signed on to this property, so that other people didn't have to go through the headache and the turmoil that I went through to close on that property. Because it was a very stressful 2 months to get that mortgage.
I understand. Before you go,
yeah,
because I really like that story, and but I want to point something out, and this is me as a real estate agent.
Yeah,
looking back now, this agent was the person that made you get your first property, no doubt. But I think personally, there is something that he didn't do also properly.
Yeah,
and I want us to talk about that because. Yes, as someone listening today, you're buying pre-construction, you're buying resale home, whatever property it is, you should do your own due diligence.
Yep.
No doubt. But I think the agent should have let you also understand some of the things. If you see someone today, if you're an agent today, knowing that what you've gone through, what do you think you would have told that person, that young Royon in the club, popping champagne and everything? How would you have told him like, hey, you love this property, but this is what you need to get ready for? Knowing your knowledge as a mortgage agent now and, knowing about real estate now.
I 100% agree with you. And that's why I don't put the blame solely on him.
Yes.
I think it's a shared blame for sure. Because I think even myself and you, we both in our respective spaces have a very clear understanding of what our responsibility is. We have a fiduciary responsibility to handle our clients with the best of care. And that's a big word that I first learned when I first got into this space. But really what it means is you got to show the highs and the upsides, but you also have to show the risks and the downsides as well for any transaction. And that is something that I take with pride with my own clients. So for example, there are clients of mine who maybe want to get a private mortgage right off the bat because they think that it's easier to get. They don't realize that it's higher interest. They don't realize all the negative implications with it. They don't understand that they could lose their house very, very quickly and easily as well with that private mortgage. But if I'm somebody who just looks at the upsides of, oh, okay, yes, it's easy to get a private mortgage, but I don't also share the downsides and the risks with them, I'm not doing a fiduciary duty to that client. And I do think that you're right. When you pinpoint it for that realtor at that time, he didn't show me all the risks or at least prep me for what I need to do leading up to my closing. But I also think that I could have did a little bit more due diligence on my own, as well as somebody who was working at the bank at the time. Granted, I wasn't working in mortgages, but working at the bank, I should have known a little bit more than what I knew at the time.
What you knew at the time.
Yeah.
I don't mean to, I don't even have the big shoe to kick to talk negative things about the banks, but I always feel surprised that why do people that work in the bank don't know about financing very well, especially real estate finance? Why? I always think, well, this is someone in the bank, they know everything about money.
And you know what's funny? And this is why I'm glad I'm a mortgage agent as opposed to being like a specific mortgage advisor or any role at the bank specifically, is because the difference that you
do they cover you from knowing or sharing?
Pardon me?
Does the bank shield you from knowing more or from sharing what you know, or they just don't know?
Not neither of those two things. Wow. What the bank does is they train you on their products to sell those products. They don't necessarily go to the same lengths to teach you all the ins and outs of a real estate transaction, all the implications of it, because the bank's main focal point is to sell their products and make money. It's profit driven.
That's true.
So they teach you just enough to sell those products, nothing more, nothing less. But as a mortgage agent, I have to learn all the ins and outs of not just the products at one bank, but all the banks and all the institutions and all the ins and outs of a real estate transaction, which is why a mortgage agent blows a bank employee out the water when it comes to knowing how to best guide a client.
Let me go back to the first year, your first year in real estate. I always like to ask this because I believe you've been in the business probably less than 5 years.
This is my fourth year, yeah.
Fourth year.
I just started my fourth year.
So I'm going to my own fourth year now in the business.
Okay.
And I always want to know, what was your experience in that first year? Because it's not, for me personally, it wasn't an easy experience, transition, but I was still ready mentally because I knew that it's not going to be easy.
Right.
But I see a lot of agents that who started 3.5 years ago that they are not in the business anymore. They're looking for jobs now. Walk me through your first year in the business.
Good question. So the first story I told you was phase one of me becoming a mortgage agent. Phase two of me becoming a mortgage agent, I lost my job in the pandemic. The job that I thought had the most security behind it, when I realized that job security is a myth.
It's a myth.
It's a myth.
Nothing like that.
And in the midst of me trying to figure out what's next, I had my son on the way, and I was living off of CERB checks and the rental income from my rental property while I was living at home with my mom. And my now mentor saw my YouTube channel because I was still putting out financial content, still showcasing how it was being a landlord essentially. And she was like, you're really knowledgeable. You have a really great knack for simplifying information and sharing it with people. Okay. She's like, I think you should be a mortgage agent. Okay. And I'm like, tell me more about this. You know what I mean? What should I do? I have a slight glimpse of what the role is because I've used a couple, but they were all trash. But what's it like? Because she was one as well. And she was like, I'll mentor you. And I'm like, I'll do this. I'll get my license. And as long as you say that you're going to mentor me, but I need two promises. One, I need actual guidance and support. And two, I had never made 6 figures in a year before. So I was like, I will do this if you can promise me that I can win. I can make 6 figures. Wow. And she's like, bet, I'll do it. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm in. I had nothing to lose. I was already unemployed. Yes. So I used my CERB check to pay my way through my courses. Got my license, I think 2 months later, followed up with her, got my license officiated, started with my brokerage and hit the ground running in, I think it was October. So I didn't get my first deal until December. And then now January onward was my first official year. And it was great. I hit that mark. I hit that 6-figure mark in my first year, which is not an easy feat, but it came along with a lot of resilience. Okay. I think people underestimate just how much failure goes into being successful. And, you know, just having to really be able to wake up every single day, remind myself why I'm doing this. And regardless of whatever losses I took the day prior, you have to get back on the horse and approach it with a very open mindset. So mindset was huge for me. And you know, just kind of going through different marketing strategies, cold calling, going to networking events, going to seminars, going to open houses. And then I really realized I'm not really fully comfortable with all of these things. They're not all that, I don't like certain aspects, but you got to do the work, right? Like you can't just be like, oh, like I have a big goal
you're comfortable with.
Exactly. But also, like, if you've got a big goal, you're not going to achieve that very large goal by living in your comfort zone.
No.
So I did have to do things that I wasn't necessarily too comfortable with, like cold calling. I don't like calling strangers and essentially begging for business or begging for a chance. But how else was I going to get myself out there?
Yes.
So I did that, a mixture of all those other things as well. But what I really leaned into was me having my YouTube background that I had just come from. That really was the reason why he even discovered me in the first place.
Okay.
I just leaned into that. So I made a lot of mortgage content. I got in front of my phone as I was already comfortable doing. I made a lot of videos. I edited it. I was already really well versed with all of those things. And I'm like, okay, you know what? If I don't want to cold call as much as I'm currently cold calling, what I can do is make sure I'm putting out a video, if not every day, every other day.
Yes.
And I would just share things that I learned every single day.
Yes.
Through video content that I also, me remembering the shoes of my client, because I was just in those shoes.
Exactly.
I know what information is valuable to a client.
Because you're having conversation with them every day.
And I'm resonating with them.
And you're seeing the mistakes they make, how you're able to guide them.
And I'm like, that was me.
And well, I think I saw one of your videos when you were talking about, you know, being a landlord. You've been a landlord for a long time, but you just moved from one of the house to another house, and you're telling how many people out there that actually have not the right document for the rental. You know, a lot of people that don't even know what they need for rental. So I like when I see content that is actually talking about what you're going through, what your client is going through. And you mentioned one word that I probably will steal from you, like people don't know how much failure that is needed or that is into being successful.
100%.
Because not the last, I think 2 episodes before this episode, my guest was, you know, one of the biggest real estate investor coach from Africa. And he's really maybe billion, I would say.
Ooh.
But he's loaded.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how you need to actually be comfortable with failing.
Have to.
You got into mortgage when there is no real, forget about what your mentor told you, you're going to make 6 figures. There's no assurance.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
She just tried to prop you and she can see something.
She can say that, and also, like, if I don't hit that, it's not because of her.
Yeah,
it's because I probably didn't put in the
you
work.
didn't
as
put in
well.
work. So right. So there's a lot of something that's still doubtful for you to know if you can make that 6 figure or more or anything you don't know. But you did it anyways. You were like, okay, if I put in work, maybe I'm going to get there. Let me switch back a little bit. Like mortgages in Canada is easy and difficult. Easy in the sense that if you have everything you need to have, you could be able to get your mortgage. But if you screw up some things a year ago, 6 months ago, even you might have the money, it might be challenging. I want to throw it back to you. As a mortgage broker, you've been in the business for almost 4 years. What are the challenges that you see people go through that the mistakes they made that make them not to qualify for mortgage? The top ones.
Yeah, so some of the things some of the easy mistakes that I see on a frequent basis that people make leading into getting a mortgage or buying a house. And even some of them I made myself. Okay. So for the first one that comes to mind when I was struggling to qualify for my mortgage was recently pivoting to a new job. So, and granted, rules change, but they change over time. This isn't as big of a hurdle now in current day, but at the time in 2019 when I was trying to get my mortgage, it was a big deal. So me not having the 2-year tenure at my job and not being full-time, it was hard for a lender to understand what my baseline was for income. Right? Like my income could fluctuate. Some weeks I'd pick up shifts. I'd have 45 hours in a week. Some weeks I might just have 20. So because of that fluctuation, a lender didn't realize, okay, there's not enough income here guaranteed to qualify for this mortgage that he needs. Okay. So that's one mistake that I see a lot of people making. Well, used to make was changing their job too soon to buying a property. If they didn't have a long enough tenure at their employer, the lender's going to have a tough time recognizing that income. Now it's a little bit more flexible. More so if you're getting a new job in the same industry, you're good to go. But if you're looking like, maybe you are currently in tech and then you want to go and be a plumber, you might need to have a little bit longer of tenure in that industry because you just made a 180 switch. But if you're working at one tech company and you get a pay raise at another tech company, so you're leaving to go to the next one, it's okay if you're there for 3-4 months because they understand that you're just making a lateral move to get an increased income, but you're still in your same industry. You're still well-versed and you're well-respected in that market. Another mistake that I see a lot of people making, this one is very common, especially in our community.
Thank you.
Down payment. Where are you saving your down payment? So there's a lot of, different cultural differences in how people like to save money. Me being Jamaican, there's something called podna where I'll have a set of money and there'll be one designated person who kind of hoards all the money for us so that we can't. I know. And this is why I'm like, I call it podna. I've spoken to many people in different, parts of the world where they just call it something different, but it's the same concept where essentially there's a group of friends and they'll have one designated person that holds all the person's money and then they'll give it back to them later on. And it's to deter you from spending your money, right? But the problem comes now where if you're trying to buy a house and I say, okay, let's just say it's me and you, and you say, hey, Royson, can you save my $2,000 a month for me for the next year so I can have $24,000 at the end of the year? I say, cool, we have a deal, we have an agreement. And then let's say at the end of the year, you're like, okay, thank you, can I have my money back? I'm gonna go buy a house now. When I transfer you your $24,000 into your account, the lender's going to ask for your proof of down payment, which is basically them seeing where your money has been for the past 90 days leading into your transaction. And if you can't explain where that money is coming from with a reasonable reason to the lender, not you, we understand what we did, but the lender's gonna look at it like, what kind of situation was this?
Which money is you?
Exactly, because the banks all have to abide by anti-money laundering laws. And if I'm just sliding you 5 figures out of the blue, in the bank's eyes, you're looking like you're money laundering. So now that client is forced to take their money back and wait 3 months forcefully till they can even start to transact, which the market could very well shift in that time frame.
Of course.
So that's where, that's a mistake that I see very commonly, is just making sure that you're saving your money and you're saving it in a space that is gonna be permissible to the bank to verify the source of your down payment whenever you buy a property.
You mentioned our community. I think from my own perspective as an agent,
of course,
I think I see more people screwing up their credit score.
That was my next one. that was the third.
I see people screwing up their credit score for reasons that they could have avoided. And the most common one that I've seen is, it's not even, maybe there's a divorce, they have to, maybe it affect them financially. When it comes to that, I know it's something maybe they can't avoid it. But for someone that is earning 80,000 or 70,000 or most commonly 60,000, and go ahead to buy a car, a BMW or a Mercedes or, Range Rover that he can't afford. And now they miss some payment. But from what maybe this is true or not, the worst debt that lender wants to see is your car debt. They don't like it. Is that true?
So it's not about the lender not liking it, right? It's not like they have a preference for credit card debt versus car loan debt. It's all a matter of ratios and how your income services that debt. And the problem is, somebody might tell you that they think that they can afford the Mercedes-Benz payment, but the reality is that payment is a very large portion of their income. So if you're going back to somebody who makes, let's say, 60 grand a year, that works out to be about 5 grand a month, right? If your car payment for that Mercedes is $1,000 a month, that is 1/5 of your income. That is 20% of your income every month goes towards
I know people making less than that money and paying almost more than what you use.
Exactly. And the thing is, and this is where, again, like I have these conversations on a daily basis with people who are in situations very similar to this. And all I have to do is walk through a very simple equation with them. If let's take the same $60,000 earner, right? If you make $5,000 a month gross, that means you're making even less after taxes. But let's just stick with gross. If you have $1,000 car payment that comes out of your pay every single month, you now have $4,000 to go towards your mortgage. You also don't want your entire $4,000 to go towards your mortgage. So when you factor in things like groceries, and you factor in things like your car insurance for that very expensive car, and you factor in home insurance, and you factor in maybe you got kids as well. They need to go to school. You got a bunch of expenses.
Or maybe you still have student loan that you're still paying, right?
Exactly. We're we're not even gonna entertain the idea of more debts on top of this car. Let's just focus on, let's just say it's just the car by itself. There are still other lifestyle expenses that you have to afford.
Yes.
And the lender's not gonna allow you to say that the remaining $4,000 from your monthly income is gonna go towards your mortgage, because the reality is you still have to live.
Exactly.
And your mortgage is not the only expense with this house. There's still property taxes. There still might be condo fees. You still might have to maintain this house because things will break here and there.
Of course.
If you're spending all of your money on the mortgage and the car payment that you have, there is no money for anything else, which is not a lifestyle that anybody can sustain.
Yes.
So that's why you really want to make sure that if you cannot avoid a car loan altogether, you want to make sure that the payment attached to whatever car loan that you are taking out is very minuscule in comparison to the overall income that you're earning.
That's
because the lender has a threshold of how much the mortgage payment that they're going to approve you for has to be of your gross income, and a very small extra threshold for any other outside debts. Once you pass that number, your mortgage approval only diminishes from there. And then you have people saying, I don't like this pre-approval. I can't buy anything with it. Well, that's because you actually couldn't afford anything more expensive.
I get it now. So let's bring it back. Let's say me and Aziz, I just moved to Canada, or I'm about to move to Canada in the next 2 weeks. I'm an immigrant. As a new immigrant, what will you tell me to do? And I'm planning, I really want to own a property, either my own home or investment property, because for me, I'm just about buy real estate, not, you must buy where you want to live. You just invest if you can. But what should I do in my first 6 months to put me in a better position of being able to buy real estate? As a new immigrant, not Canadian, I've not been here. I have history here already. I remember majority of the immigrants coming into Canada, they're coming from a system that is different from a credit system we have here.
Right.
Especially from, Nigeria, other African countries that I come from. What should I do in my first 6 months?
First and foremost, you want to make sure that you get your citizenship situation in order.
The visa status in this country.
Exactly, because unless you're a Canadian citizen or you're a permanent resident, you're going to be recognized as a foreign buyer.
Okay.
There are certain situations where if you've been on a work permit for a very extended amount of time, there's exceptions to the rule.
Can you touch on that a little bit? I'm actually
it's a really huge gray area, so I don't want to say this and this is very is concrete. Okay. But if you've been on a work permit for an extended amount of years, then you can be recognized pretty much as a permanent resident.
Okay.
But if you're not that situation, then you are recognized as a foreign buyer, which foreign buyer has a very massive fine and tax that they face for any purchase.
And I think for residential now, foreign buyers have been banned now for another year or so.
Exactly.
But let's say I'm coming in as a PR holder.
Okay,
I'm just moving my family. I have my PR. We're good. We want to live in this beautiful country. What should I do in my first 6 months?
You want to situate yourself with your income. So you want to figure out your employment situation and have that solidified. Ideally, what you want is a full-time position. Because again, with that part-time role, your hours can fluctuate, which means your income fluctuates, which means the lender is going to always assume the least amount of guaranteed income. So if you're part-time and you're working a job that, is only guaranteeing you 10 hours a week, but you work 40 because you pick up somebody's shifts, they're only going to look at the 10 hours a week that you work. So that does you a huge disservice.
Because that's guaranteed hours that they could use.
Exactly. And the name of the game is just maximizing your income on paper from a guaranteed standpoint, so a lender feels comfortable lending you a larger mortgage to buy the property that you're looking to buy. On top of that, you want to make sure that you're very adamant, very consistent, and diligent with saving up your down payment. There is no buying a property with 0% down payment. There's a lot of chatter on the internet about doing it. It's nothing that I would recommend, especially to somebody that is new to the country.
Yes.
Because you need to have at least 5% of the purchase price. If you're looking at something that is costing more than $500,000, the minimum down payment increases from there. It's not just 5%. So the more you're saving, the higher your minimum down payment will be, the more money you'll have to go towards said purchase and not be limited by the amount of money that you have. For example, if you're somebody trying to buy something for $800,000 and you're thinking that you can buy with straight up 5%, and you only have 5% of $800,000, which is $40,000, you're not buying for $800,000.
You're not buying.
So if you don't want to be limited by how much cash you actually have, save up more than you might even need so that you have the luxury of picking what your price point ends up being. And then lastly, if you're someone that's new to the country, I know it's very tempting. I know it can be difficult as well, because how else do you really, get the car or, be able to set up the house that you want to, but you want to avoid debt as much as possible. I see a lot of people that get into the country and they take out a loan here, they take out a car loan there, they take out 2 car loans sometimes even. And then they have to work twice or triple as hard to pay off those debts to be in a position to buy. Whereas if they were able to hold off on those debts in the first place, they maybe would have been able to buy a lot sooner and then leverage equity to get all those things in the future.
I like, the way you touch on, especially the last point, like take on less debt. It's very important. There's a lot of things that I want to tempt you to say, let me get this credit card, Walmart give it to me, PC on Timor, Canadian Tire, you get all these cards, and at the end of the day, you're like, holy moly, oh my goodness, I have to pay all this. So I want to ask another question about foreign income. Is there any, even if you don't have a lot of information about it, that recognizes foreign income to be able to use towards your mortgage? Because there are some people that move to this country, they still have their remote work and they're looking for work here and they're making kind of good money. Is there any program in Canada that recognizes that kind of foreign job?
You're not going to find banks that are going to be doing that. This is something where you would more so be leveraging alternative lenders. Alternative lenders like B lenders are going to be a lot more flexible with what they do and don't allow compared to a bank. Banks are very strict. They have very clear guidelines on what they do and don't accept. And as you kind of go down to the B lenders and private lenders, that's when they become a little bit more flexible and say, okay, maybe a bank won't do this type of deal, but I'm okay with it because I see how this works. So there is not to say that foreign income is completely written off, but it does limit your options. What I would suggest and what I have actually recommended to some people who are in situations like that is open up a corporation over here and funnel your income through that corporation. You know what I mean? So if you're continue to operate your business or whatever you have set up in your foreign country, but you're living here, you have to generate your income through that corporation. And then that way, you're still showing an income. You can explain the structure of your business and then you can go from there because
just it's legal as well.
It is legal.
People, the banks, the lenders will not look at you like, where's this money coming from?
But and even if they do, you can show and explain why or how this is working. It's when you're trying to do things shadily and say, oh, well, I've got this money in my account. Don't ask me where it came from. The bank is going to hang up on you really quickly. Yeah. So as long as you're doing things by the book, you're good to go. So opening up a corporation or at least setting up the business in a way where, you've got the proper clientele, you've got the proper paper trail to show where the money is coming from and what you do, then you'll be good to go. And like I said, the mortgage space is constantly evolving. It used to be like, well, you got to do this for 2 years at a bare minimum to even have this considered. There's a lot more programs now that are becoming a lot more entrepreneur friendly, where maybe now it's a 6-month time frame that you need to kind of showcase this, and then that can be annualized. So there's a lot more programs of flexibility out there to accommodate and not necessarily have to handcuff you or make you wait on the sidelines for 2 years if that's really what your main concern is.
I actually want to ask about that because, a lot of my network, my friends, they kind of have a business now. They are agents like me. They are self-employed. And I think it's one of the biggest challenge that anyone that own their own business and they're not like big business yet is to qualify for mortgage. Are there really programs that can help them to they still need they can do 5% as first time homebuyer, or they have to now come up with 20%?
So this is how I know you've been talking to a lot of people. So it used to be you needed to have a 20% down payment bar none to have these self-employment programs accessible to you. But again, the mortgage space is constantly evolving. There's a lot of A lenders now which allow you to leverage those types of programs to recognize your self-employment income a little bit more generously without you needing to have a 20% down payment. So there's a lot of, hypothetically speaking, yes, there are solutions where we could do a 5% down payment and you could purchase. I actually had a single mom close on her first property in December. And she was a self-employed individual. She was a consultant, a business consultant. And she had an 8% down payment and she bought her townhouse in Niagara for her and her daughter to move into. And she had just set up her corporation about a year prior. So a year's worth of her showing her income over the course of that past year, we were able to annualize it, have a lender that recognizes this type of income very well, and give her the mortgage when she actually purchased a house a year prior, got the offer accepted, and had to back out of her deal because she couldn't get the mortgage at the time, because once they saw her bank statements, they're like, no, there's not 2-year track record, we're not going to take this. So a year later, and me finding the right lender with the right program, we were able to have her buy pretty much in the same area that she had bought a year prior, and actually make the dream come true this time.
Wow. And this actually leaned on what you said about mortgage, like like you, the kind of mortgage broker that you are, you have the access to a lot of lenders. And I tell people when they come to me, no, I want to go to TD, I want to go to BMO.
Yeah.
I'm like, I didn't say don't go there. You have a bank account there.
Yeah.
But what about talking to a mortgage broker first, because this person have access to all those things. If that person have gone to, let's just say TD, and they don't have that program, right away either they turn her down or they're going to start bringing another program for her. But for you to have you at a corner, you're able to kind of look around and find something that will be a kind of better for her, which is really good. Let's just touch on our real estate market here. I have one personal question I'm going to still ask you. Don't worry about it.
You can go as personal as you want.
I'm not going to forget. But I want to ask you, what's your own opinion about our industry? And I know this is a general question, so I'm not going to make a question so general. I would say for the public now, there's a lot of information out there, a lot of noise, a lot of real estate is going to crash. Real estate is trash in Canada.
Oh, man.
I shared a message with one of my mentor of a client, or I should say a lead, that sent to me that she will never buy real estate in Canada. Why? Because she just found out that she's going to pay tax on the property for the rest of her life. I'm like, you pay tax where you come from. You just don't know.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of information, a lot of misinformation.
Misinformation. Yep.
From your own perspective, educate the public on why real estate in Canada and what do you think. This is not me telling you have to predict the market. This is just me telling you what's your opinion about the market. Looking at what has happened the last 2 years and the year we are in now, what do you think?
So, and that's such a loaded question.
I know.
But honestly, like I love it. Like I talk about this all day, every day, because I'm passionate about it. And there isn't any one right or wrong answer.
Yes.
And really what it comes down to, every single time I talk to somebody and they, ask me for my opinion or what they should do, it really comes down to, there's so many layers to it. What is your situation? Can you afford to buy real estate right now? What would you have to do to get yourself into position to buy real estate in the future, if not right now? What are your goals? So even this lady that you're saying said that she will never buy real estate in Canada. And granted, if that's her prerogative, all the more power to you. I'm not here to convince somebody who has a very clear outlook on what they think they do or don't want to do.
Yes.
I'm not here to change minds, but I'm here to help people who want to achieve a certain goal. And for example, I had this conversation in my group chat, like literally on the way over here today after the announcement was made. And we're talking about the condo market. Okay. And this is where, again, like the sentiment is different depending on what it is you're looking at and what you're trying to do. If you're somebody who's trying to buy a condo right now, there's opportunities out there.
A lot. I have that call last night with one of my clients.
But at that same token, are you an investor or are you an end user? If you're an investor, I still don't think it makes sense to buy a condo.
Yes.
No matter how much opportunity is there in the condo market.
I don't think so.
But if you're somebody who's like, for example, my friends in my group chat, they're bachelors, they like downtown life.
You want to stay in Toronto?
Go buy the condo. It makes sense. It's the prices are low. There's very little competition. Sellers are desperate to sell. You have the luxury of driving that negotiation.
Yes.
And getting the price that you want.
Exactly.
If you're an investor or you're somebody like me who I hate downtown, I had no desire to live down there.
First time I see someone that hates downtown like me. I'm my own person. I can't live downtown if they give me free hours. It cannot.
You would have to pay me a very large sum to live down
Yes, if they pay me, maybe I'll do it.
And you know what? It's got to be a large sum because I still got to pay for parking everywhere I go. And I'm going to lose all the money very quickly.
But a lot of people want to. So I tell them, like, you can't tell me you love downtown, you love even Midtown, even up to like North York, and you don't want to consider condo when you can't afford to buy townhouse.
Exactly.
Like at this market, you should. But continue. I just want to kind of hear your own opinion as well.
But again, this is what I'm talking about, right? Like we have different perspectives on the same thing.
Yes.
We're talking about condos. Some people love it. Some people hate it. Some people hate the area. So it's like, how can I go and tell somebody who hates downtown and doesn't see the value in a condo to go buy a condo right now?
Yes.
It doesn't make sense for you.
It doesn't.
Or if you're an investor, like I'm an investor. I have 3 properties. I'm looking to buy my 4th after I have my wedding this year. I'm still never going to look at a condo because it's a terrible investment when you add up the mortgage, the condo fees that are going to continue to skyrocket every year,
increase, right?
and the property taxes, which will also increase. And then the rental market is again, it's kind of stagnant because I'm limited on how much can I really charge a tenant to rent out a 1-bedroom, 1-den.
And you can't force the appreciation. You can't renovate something. No, like we do in multifamily. It's like,
Exactly.
okay, I'm going to change that basement, turn it to 3-bedroom.
Exactly.
You can't
There's very little value add that I can do to the condo.
Yeah.
So therefore, as an investor, I see zero value in a condo. But if I'm somebody like my friends who are bachelors, have no kids, love downtown, and have the money to do it right now, go buy the condo. And then on the flip side as well, like in regards to the market, I guess a future outlook. Again, like I'm not gonna sit here and predict the market.
No one can do that.
Exactly. I don't want to be the guy that people point back to 3 months later saying, you said this was gonna happen.
Yeah, he said it, not me. I brought him to the podcast. I'm not the one that predicted to
be the scapegoat. But also what I think is very, very imminent is the fact that like the population is growing. There's already a massive shortage of houses. And we're seeing interest rates come down. We literally today we saw another 0.25% decrease by the Bank of Canada. And really what that's going to cause is a different sentiment from a buyer perspective, what I presume. And we're going to see with certain property types in certain areas, we're going to see those values increase.
Yes.
So if we're not talking about condos, we're talking about townhouses, detached homes, semi-detaches, multifamily, we're going to see those prices increase year over year.
Exactly.
And continue to do so. Because even last year, I think, was the golden time to buy when the markets were pretty much at a lull, at a standstill. Nobody knew what was happening. There was a lot more uncertainty. And that's exactly why I went and bought my house. So I went and bought my detached home in Cambridge that I closed on in September. And literally a house sold right around the corner from me 2 days ago. Me and my fiance, we went to the open house because we were being nosy.
The nosy neighbors.
They were listed higher than we even bought our house for. It's the same layout. I think it's actually a little bit less square footage. They were listed higher than us, than we bought for 5 months prior. And they sold it for what ended up being $50,000 higher than we bought for 5 months ago. So again, that's already showing you where the market's kind of trending towards for certain areas and certain property types. And we're still in winter. This is still the slower season.
Exactly. People don't want to go out to see property when it's snowing.
Exactly. Right? So imagine now when it's spring, people are coming back from their winter vacations. They're also more okay with going outside. And also, a lot of the people that are looking at properties of this nature are looking to sell and buy, meaning that they're looking at these property types because they want to move up. So if they're selling properties, they're going to be coming up on cash to go and buy these other properties at higher price points as well. You really got to have a little bit of a long-term outlook and kind of predict what other people would be thinking. If I'm a seller, I'm waiting until the spring and summer to sell my house.
Of course.
So I can go buy something as well. So that only brings added people into the market, which is going to drive up prices.
I mean, I like the way you kind of break it down on the future outlook of what you want, because I tell people, like, when they come to me, like the lady I was having a conversation with last night about condo, I just knew her like a week ago, and yesterday was our first really conversation. My first question is, why do you want to buy real estate?
Exactly.
And she was able to tell me that, she's been in this country for a year now, and she'd see that she will continue to pay rent if she doesn't try to buy now. And she's open to condo. And she was like, do you think condo market is, I'm like, you want to live there? Yeah. You prefer condo? She said she really likes condo. So looking at that kind of person, it's easier for me to show her data of, this is good in terms of you living in that condo, at least for the next 3 to 5 years, and see what comes up.
Yeah.
But let me add a little bit to what you, like another question to what you just answered now. The political situation of Canada could change.
Exactly.
Could. I'm using the word could because
who knows? Yeah.
I know JT is leaving.
Yeah.
From what he told us, if he didn't change his mind.
Yeah.
But I know we're going to be thinking of, getting another leader. Do you think whichever party is going to come in, the blue or the red guys, I don't really care which of them that comes in. I personally don't think it's going to change my personal life that much. But do you think any of the two parties that might bring someone in, our next leader, could also change the dynamics of our real estate? Do you think so?
I mean, and this is where, again, like, you have to be real. Like, this would not be the first time that promises have been made to change the real estate market and the landscape of it.
As people listen to this, because a lot of people are waiting, that it's going to change, that everything will be good.
We've been waiting for decades already. Like, we literally have been waiting. And again, and if you're somebody who thinks that this is going to be the change that's needed, right? What can be done logistically to make this happen? Like I said, there's a very massive shortfall between how much houses are available to people and how much people want these houses.
Yes.
The amount of, I saw the stat, I'm not going to try and quote it, but basically almost millions of homes have to be built in a short period of time.
I know the
to
data.
even make it match.
Yes, I know the data. If they stop immigration today,
yeah,
they stop. Nobody's coming into Canada.
Exactly.
We need over 1 million houses.
Thank you.
Over 1 million.
Exactly.
No more people coming in to be able to meet the demand. And mind you, only in Ontario.
And to add
Only
to
in
that,
Ontario.
we're seeing more and more builders back out of the industry.
Yes.
Because the numbers don't make sense anymore. Builders are in this space to make money and make it fast. They want to get in and they want to get out.
in any business to make money.
And what they do is they look and see how much would it cost to make X amount of houses, and what can we sell that amount of houses for as well.
Yeah.
Well, if the cost of building those houses has exponentially grown and taken up more time, a lot of them are a lot less incentivized now to take action on that project, or they're going elsewhere where it makes more sense.
Yes.
Like
US.
America.
Yes.
So if we can see that there's going to be less houses being built because the people who build houses are less incentivized to build houses here, how is that gap going to shrink anytime soon? No matter who you put in office, if people who build houses are not building houses, how are we bridging the gap?
Do you not think the government, no matter who is in the office, do you think the government should, and I wasn't even planning to talk about builders because people see them in a negative way. I mean, there are some bad builders that they don't really care, they don't know much. But reputable builders want to protect their name. But I think people don't understand that builders go through a lot of things, a lot of obstacles for them to not actually want to build. Because in some cases they might lose money, they're also getting loan from banks to build. Do you think the policies that need to change, whoever is in the office, should be focusing on how to make builders build more? I know there's CMA Select program now that's kind of let people want to build rental properties, but not only rental properties that we need in this country, right? You think it's just that policy of letting the builder also be in a good way for us to have more homes?
Well, that's the thing too. Like, it's not just the government needing to incentivize builders to build. The literal cost of building is expensive. The materials that go into building are a lot more expensive. The labor that they used to hire to do the building is a lot more expensive than it was now. And like you made mention of, these builders are not coming out of their own pockets for these costs. They're taking out loans to handle the cost of these projects. And if the project takes too long because labor is really expensive, they can hire less labor, then that cuts into their profit margin.
Of course.
And again, I get it. Everyone has their ideologies and their perspectives on builders, or realtors even have bad reputations sometimes. Mortgage agents get bad reputations sometimes.
Many times.
But the realistic, the aspect is, you want these people to build houses. And granted, if they're trying to make a profit, they're trying to make a profit.
Yes.
Do you want them to do it for free? I'll ask you. And if that's the case, if you're somebody who is sitting there saying builders need to make houses just for the sake of making housing, why don't you do it?
Yeah, why don't you go in and do it?
I'm just
oh my goodness,
to the pot. But it was like it's a conversation that I think is a little tiresome. And again, like, I'm here to answer the question as is. Do I think that government is going to come in and solve the problem right away?
No.
I think they can do things to make the problem get solved over a long period of time.
Yes.
But no, this is not something that's going to be solved over one term.
God, you've mentioned a lot of things today that just kind of bring a lot of memory. I was having a conversation with my wife, I think a few days ago, about a comment I made on a video online, because you see a lot of hate for mortgage brokers, realtors, landlords.
Yeah.
And I got, I think, the 2-8 comment from they thinking I'm saying that because maybe I'm a landlord or because I'm an agent. So I see a video of, I don't know if one of these media outlets talking about some landlords using AI to inflate the rental price of a particular location they want to sue them. And I'm like, that is not really what is affecting Canadian real estate. You know, people think, and this is true, from people's comment, I have to literally go delete my comment. Mind you, I put this comment on this video 4 weeks ago, and I still continue to get reply on it, like maybe 40 replies.
Yeah.
People thinking landlords, agents, we are the one that make real estate just become expensive.
Yeah, no.
And the press are doing a very good job in making it look like that. You know, and I just wish people can kind of understand the real back end of the information. There's not real estate agents, not the mortgage brokers. It's the policy, I would say.
It is what it is. And the thing is, like, it's so funny because I know exactly what you're talking about. I spend a fair share of time on TikTok and on Instagram as well, just putting out my own videos and seeing people interact with me. And it's so funny to see the double standards sometimes, because they like to blame realtors, right? But the realtors are, let's say they're saying, okay, you guys have made prices inflate to what they are, right? And granted, you guys help people sell their houses for max dollar. But if I'm somebody selling my house, why would I not want to sell my house for max dollar? And the people that are complaining, if they had a house that they were selling, would they not want to sell it for max dollar?
Don't even mention that.
And the thing is that, and I don't see mortgage agents get as much flack as realtors or builders, but I am a landlord, and it's so funny because I'm a landlord of, I have 2 rental properties. And on one hand, I have a rental property that cash flows me about $1,000 a month. And everyone's like, oh, like,
that's good.
That's great. And then I have another property that is net negative about $800 a month.
Okay.
And everyone's like, why are you holding on to that property? Yeah. This is the good and the bad of being a landlord and being a real estate investor.
I like that.
And when you are net negative, everyone's like, well, why would you even partake in this type of investment? You're a buffoon for even taking part in this. But then when you're winning,
they're like, you're what's wrong.
You're what's wrong with the market, and you're adding to the problem.
That is it.
Well, why weren't, when I was struggling and I was taking the loss, you guys didn't have anything to say. You guys weren't really empathizing with me.
Yes.
But now when I'm winning, it's like, oh, I shouldn't have been doing this. No, the loss is what led me to now being in the winning position. And it comes with the territory.
Exactly. That's what happened on the comment I said. People said, oh, you're the problem. Why would anyone own a house just to make profit on it? I'm like, some of them own this house when a shitty house that they turn around, they renovate.
Exactly.
So you expect me to spend $150,000 to make a house look nice and just not make any profit?
It's wild.
If it's that easy, why don't you do it?
And then also, and then you take it a step further, right? And a lot of us are holding these properties for multiple reasons. I even recorded a video about this yesterday, right? Like, people are asking me, why do you hold on to the property that's sinking $800 every single month? Well, I'm holding on to that property so I can give it to my son in the future, because how is he going to buy a property in the future if it's this hard right now? So there's other motives to it. This isn't just a money grab. But also, if that property was mortgage free and I had no mortgage, I only pay property taxes for the year, should I then not charge a tenant rent to be in my property? I don't understand. Do you also get mad at Walmart when they buy something at a low price and sell it to you for a higher price?
Right.
You don't do that. So why, when we're talking about real estate specifically, do we have this different skewed lens of how we look at the people who own said asset?
Yes.
Because in any other asset class, we don't do that.
We don't.
Which is why if you're gonna be in this industry, you gotta have thick skin. You gotta let some of these stuff roll off your back.
Yes.
And do what you wanna do, because I'm not gonna sit here and argue with people about very clear logistics. And if they were in my position, they'd probably do the same thing or worse.
Of course. You said worse. I have buyers, and literally, she knows that. I have buyers that before we buy them property, all they say is it's too expensive. Come on, this is too expensive. And at the end of the day, I take them like 1 hour from the GTA. They are open to go there. We get good deals for them at even lower price than they thought. And in 6 months, they're already telling me, how much do you think my house is worth now? I think it should be worth more than that, right? Yeah. When I do CMA and send them video, like, do you think it should be worth more than that? I'm like, you forgot 6 months ago when we wanted to buy property. You told me it's too expensive. Why do you think a property should be more than that? And I got back to him like, I know you're not selling now, you just want to go up. But even if I do the analysis for you, when you want to sell, the market will decide.
Yeah, exactly.
Someone I buying your property will be, you want to decide like, this is what is worth it or not. So
I'm glad you may mention that, because I mean, at the end of the day, and people who are upset about where prices are and whatnot, like, granted, I'm not here saying I want price to be this high either. But like you said, the market dictates value.
Exactly.
Something is worth however much somebody is willing to pay for it. And why should anybody sell for less if they can sell it for more?
The market is saying it's worth more, right?
Exactly, which is why it's your responsibility to have yourself in a position where you can take advantage when values are low. And put yourself in a position to then sell that asset when values are high.
Wow. Or refinance if you need to fund money, right?
People have done the work to be in the position that you're talking down on. And if you do the work as well, you can be in these positions as well. And granted, some people are going to sit there and say, I don't even want to be a part of this because I don't want to contribute to the problem. It's happening regardless.
Yes.
You can be a part of it, or you can sit on the sidelines complaining about it.
Or you can be a part of it, or you will be what will be used to fuel other people's.
You're not going to create a massive revolt that is going to change the structure of what has been happening for centuries.
This is 6-7 decades, right?
Because you don't like it, it's not going to change now. And prices have gotten to a price point that you deem unreasonable. There's places like New York. There's places like LA. There's a lot of places around the world.
There are a lot of expensive places in Singapore
are way crazier.
Exactly.
So it is what it is. And what do people that do in those places that don't like the prices? They move.
Exactly.
Move if that's the case.
Let me ask you something personal. Because I know a lot of people will be like, why are they talking to me about real estate? But really, we are both passionate about this industry. Yeah. But I saw one of the videos online, I think from Brandon's show.
Brandon Gomez, shout out to him.
And probably I'm going to have Brandon on my podcast.
Hopefully.
Actually, I really like him. I get this stress. And, he was talking about, pardon me if I don't know how to pronounce it very well. I don't know how to pronounce the name. Oh my God.
Sound it out.
Vasectomy.
Yes.
So, which is kind of literally the same thing now, the female.
It's the male version of getting your tubes tied.
Exactly. The female gender that they'll be like, I don't want to get pregnant anymore. I'm going to,
don't need more kids. So you take preventative
cut
measures.
everything or tie it, which is the same version for male. And I've heard about it. And honestly, and I'm saying this right in front of you, we've had conversation about it before. Myself and my wife. We've had conversation.
How many kids do you guys have?
We have 2.
Okay,
so I've had conversation about this. And I'm like, maybe I'm going to do it. Because I don't want more.
Okay.
My wife wants 6.
6? You got a big Dubai, you got 2.
So,
and you got 6?
My wife wants 6. But I saw a video and I was like, first of all, kudos to you to come online to say that. Yeah. That's why I'm now comfortable to say this, because I'm like, can I say that online? So, but why? Why? Because you have one. And as much as I know, I love kids. I just don't want to have many. And even if I end up having many, I will still love them regardless.
Of course.
But is there any reason why you're like, first of all, is there any risk involved in this thing?
Great, a lot of questions, and they're all great questions. They're all valid, and that's exactly why I took it upon myself to talk about it on Brandon Gomez's platform, right? Like, we're here talking about, how taboo money is in our community. I think talking about these things are so taboo, and why nobody wants to even mention it. You know what I mean? Where I'm just like, what's the problem with talking about it? You know what I mean? You have questions clearly, and you could benefit from knowing about it. Yes. And the risks aspect. There's risk that the surgery could not work, which is why I had to go for a follow-up to make sure that it was a successful surgery. Okay. But it was honestly a very seamless transition. It was a very seamless surgery. I kid you not, booked it. The surgery itself happened, I think, 3 months later. Okay. And you can either be awake for it or you can get put to sleep. I don't know anybody that would want to be awake for that. So I definitely took the option of going to sleep. Okay. And I got wheeled into the room. They gave me the anesthetic. I got to maybe 7. Okay. And I was out. Wow. When I woke up, I was in the room with my fiance beside me, and it was done half an hour later.
Does anything change? Do you feel like something changed in you?
No, nothing changed. Everything functions the exact same way. I had a pack of frozen peas on my area for about 2 days. Wow. That's about it. And I'm somebody that goes to the gym very often. I play basketball still. I think I didn't go to the gym for about a week and a half. Okay. Didn't play basketball for about a week and a half. After that, I was right back to my regular schedule.
Are you worried there might be consequences on that?
Consequences like what?
Like, and I'm asking this question generally, like, just want to know, do you think there might be a medical condition to you doing that? Like, would that affect the way your body works?
I don't think that there will be. This is not something that has been, introduced in the past 2 years. Like, the vasectomies have been around for a while. Okay. So I do think that they've had time to perfect it and make sure that there aren't long-term risks still lingering about it. For example, but I challenge you back. There were people who lined up to get vaccines during the pandemic that had barely been trialed.
I've tried, but I'm one of the people that got the vaccine, right?
I did. It was too new for me.
And as you said, I got the vaccine, and later I'm like,
what could happen?
Maybe I shouldn't have get that.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
So the unknown is still there, right?
Yes.
But is there any option? I'm not going to let us go deeper on this conversation because it's no, I just like to touch on it.
But before you even leave it, the reason why I got one, though, even though I only have one, is I felt like, one, I had no problem with pouring all of my love into one kid. And same with my fiance. And we both were able to acknowledge the fact that the one kid took up a lot of not only our intimate time together, And I don't just mean like sexually. I mean like
Just
it
your
takes
time.
a lot of time and effort, and even like just having the ability to relax. Your kid takes up a very large portion of your time and your capacity to do that. And I didn't feel like there was a lot left in the tank for us to bond with each other or even have for ourselves after going through day after day after day of parenting. And parenting is one of those things where I don't think people really understand until they get into it.
Yeah, you learn
how
a new one.
relentless it is. It is every single day. You can call in sick to work. You can't call in sick to parenting. And there's a lot of sacrifices that have to go into it. For example, we went on our first vacation in 5 years this past October. Because
only both of you are with the kid as well.
both of us, no kid at all.
We've not done that.
Because he's old enough to now stay at grandma and grandpa's house without worrying about where we are. But like, that's a very big sacrifice, especially at our age. Like I'm 32, she's 28. Like we want to still be able to, explore the world and not have to bring a 4-year-old around with us, because that's not that fun, in my opinion, to go vacation with a 4-year-old. So they're gonna get tired, they're gonna want to stay home, they're gonna want to. I'm like, I came here to explore. I came here to have fun and relax and unwind, and I don't think that's much about vacation. But neither here nor there. We just felt like one was enough for us.
The decision that you both collectively had.
Yes, I presented it to her. I was a little nervous when I made mention of my thoughts, because I wasn't sure how she was gonna feel. And she was like, I've been feeling the same way. I'm glad you made mention of it. And it was a huge relief. But I definitely think it's worth having a conversation, right? And I think that the more we have conversations like this, the more people see what was talked about on Brandon Gomez's platform and more, the easier it will be to have those conversations, because I don't think that it's any more beneficial to feel the way that you feel or someone else feel the way that they feel and not have a conversation about it because it's too taboo.
You think you might one day think maybe you want to have more, and if you decide that you want to, because you might,
I might change.
Something might change in you, right? If you decide you want to have more in future, do you know if you'll be able to do it?
Good question.
Don't do it.
It is reversible. And that is a big reason why I made that decision for myself. So the reversal I heard is definitely not as easy as the initial surgery.
Okay.
It is also not free.
Okay.
And it's also like the longer you wait to make that reversal decreases the success of that reversal. So if you wait 10, 15 years, there's a lot less likelihood that it's going to be a successful reversal as opposed to doing the reversal a year later.
2 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and again, like I don't think I'm going to change my mind, but it's nice to have that option. Whereas if she got her tubes tied, the reversal process is far more dangerous.
Okay.
And I don't even think reversals are possible, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't think so too.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Anyway,
so, yeah.
It's still a good chance because your son will get all the love from both of you. So lucky him, right?
He can be as spoiled as he wants to be.
Right. Anyways, I want to really thank you so much. I know we had a lot of conversation on this podcast. We talk about, our community, how we can help. Because the main goal is how can we help people, right?
Yeah, impact.
And I really, really appreciate your time. You drove down from, you're in Cambridge now,
Yeah, I'm in
right?
Cambridge now.
Drove down from Cambridge for this podcast, and we're meeting for the first time in person, even though we've been having conversation for
The chemistry was there.
That's it. We've been having a few conversations online for like going to a year now, and I appreciate your time. I think a lot of people will listen to this podcast and learn a lot of things. Even for me, I learned a lot of things from you, and I hope, we're going to be able to do a lot of other partnership as well.
For sure.
We have event coming up in the next, 10
February
days.
8th, be there.
February 8th. So I'm really glad that we're doing this, and thank you so much, Sam.
No problem. Thanks for having me.